All right, guys. So let's walk through some more of our Pirate Coffee. So, what our goal is today is that we are going to take our content that we have from our Pirate Coffee Brainstorm, and we are going to organize that into semantic HTML, ready for us to start designing in CSS. So the goal is that we are going to use, we're going to do page 1 and page 2. We're going to organize using main, aside, and footer because we already did our headers. And then inside of those, we can further organize based off of what we already have from our headers to further organize into articles or sections and use proper heading numbers. Okay. We will end up making some changes with these later on, but this is to kind of walk through how we decide what goes where and how we determine which semantic HTML elements to use. Okay, so there will be a video attached to this if you need to reference, based on when we're going off of in class. If you missed something, you can watch this video. It covers the same stuff. Okay, when you guys are done with the assignment, you guys would be turning in the 2 pages that we are working on. Okay, so let's look at our brainstorm. Now out of this section, I'm working out of the section where we are collecting our individual content. So here I have 2 pages. My page 1 and page 2, which we can see here. This is my page 1, which is our brand page, and my page 2, which is our process page. Okay, so those are the ones that we are going to do. In future videos, we're going to be doing the other 2 pages, and we'll keep building off of it. Okay, so that's the goal. That's what we need to organize. We need to build the content. So then I'm going to go ahead and open up Atom. If you do not have your project folder showing up here yet, you guys can always add a project folder by going File, and then Add Project Folder, okay? And once you do that, you just locate the folder that you want to use as your project folder. So that walkthrough folder, once you put that in there, you don't have to keep selecting that. The files will just automatically show there. So that's what we see here. I have my Pirate Coffee one. So all I have to do is just have a class. So this is the folder that we're working on right now, our walkthrough. So these are our current files. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that nothing else is open except for these files. Now we're just doing the 2 first ones. So my very first page is always going to be my index. So I'm going to open that one up. And then the second page is going to be my process. So if I go ahead and orient, what we already had our titles. We built our header. We already put our H1 in here for Pirate Coffee. What did we have on our process? We had our H1 for Pirate Coffee. We will probably end up maybe making some changes. We might leave these as H1s and then change the other ones, so that kind of depends on the content. But we have already developed our headers, so that means that we really don't need to see the code here. So I can, where the numbers are, I can actually minimize parts of the code. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the little caret, and it just shrunk the header down. If I want to open it back up, I just click. So the numbers are showing me that I'm skipping material because I have it here, and that's what those 3 dots are. Okay, so I'm going to work on the index page first. I'm going to give some space. Okay, let's go look at our content. So page 1, this is what I got. I have a bunch of stuff that we have put in here, and we kind of need to look at what we have. We have, obviously, this is kind of like our page title. And then we have a goal with some text and some pictures, more text. Let's see. Locations. And then this, which has contact information. Okay, so when I'm thinking in terms of organization, of the stuff that I've collected, what is the main information? That should be what is using that main element, okay? And I think the goal We are focused on each sip bringing the taste to the sea. Life is more than just the sum of its parts. We love the freedom of the sea. This is all like branding stuff. Pictures. We are Pirate Coffee. We want to make the best coffee to ever hit your taste buds. That all seems like that is main content for that page. Okay, so then when I come to Atom for how I'm going to build my structure, I know that I'm going to use main. So I'm going to go ahead and open that and hit tab. And I know that I'm going to use aside, and I'm going to click tab for that. Okay, now main aside is not inside main. When we look at it, what would our aside hold? Our aside is going to end up holding our location. So that makes sense. Okay, and then what else do we have? We got this contact information. Well, what we've learned, that is footer elements. So after my aside, I should end up having a footer. So in terms of my page now, if I minimize things, so I have a header, I have a main, an aside, and a footer. All of the main components that we've talked about on building a page. Now let's go ahead and we'll start building. So we're going to start with the main and look at the pieces that we need. So I'm going to start copying and kind of pasting, but looking at it. Okay, so this is my main page. And this is where I kind of do need to think about, I have our brand showing up as a title here, but do I actually want that to be something that is showing up on my text? I don't think so. I think actually I want Pirate Coffee to be something that is very reoccurring. And so then I'm kind of giving an aspect for each one. It really depends on your content. I had you guys developing using like H1s and H2s. I know that my page is listed as our brand. I have my title for that. I think that that's okay. So because of that, and that's already my H1, that means that any other headings that I use, I need to start at H2. Okay? So main is a semantic element, so I don't need to give a heading that I'm going to hide just for screen readers or anything like that. So let's jump into our stuff. So we have, let's start copying. We have our H2, we have our paragraph. I'm going to leave the images for now. So we have that first piece. Okay. So what we need to think about now is main has to be broken up into pieces. I should not just have all of these headings and these paragraphs just randomly sitting there. If I can break them up and group them together, I really do need to kind of think about this. So for main, I am giving kind of like different little snippets, and it's like each snippet has, maybe some text, and then it has some pictures. And I think it would be best to do that as a section, because I don't think it's something that can be completely separated by itself, but I do think that they're a group. So I'm going to create a section, and inside my section, I'm going to have this paragraph right here. Okay, normally we do a heading for each one, but since this is just little paragraph pieces, I don't think that we really need to have a heading for a completely independent section. I'm actually using section as an organizational piece. There might be a better way to do this using a tag that we have not learned yet called div, and we'll get into that later. Section, though, actually will be pretty good for this, because we're saying that this is a part of main, but it's not, the whole. So of the goal, that is kind of the culminating thing of main. Maybe I might do, who we are. I might change my content a little bit, but all right. So I got this paragraph. What else do I want in here? I probably want some of those pictures. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and copy this picture. Now, if I just paste it like this, well, for one, I don't really like how that worked. Let's toggle soft wrap, so that's clicking on view, and it makes it so anything going past this line is going to try to stay on our page. It makes it a little bit easier for us to see. and we can still see the number. It's just wrapping it here. It's a soft wrap, so it's easier for us to read. Okay, now, if you're building a page, this should not be the way that you are loading all your pages, because if this link ever goes dead, then you are going to end up having issues. So we do want to copy this photo. We want to find this photo. So let's see if we can copy that link and go to a browser and try to download. So there is my image. I actually want to download this to my assets. So let's go here to our walkthrough. And we're just going to paste this in here. But I want to give it a simple name because we're going to have to tag to it. Okay. So instead of doing this, what I find is best is if I look at a description, kind of an idea of what this is. This is bags of coffee. So I'm going to name that something like that. So when I click Save Image As, I'm going to just do coffee bag. Do not put spaces. You could use hyphens, but I wouldn't put spaces. Okay. So coffee bag. Let's do that. I'm saving that. Okay. Now, when I have this, for this to work, you need to make sure. So let's show this in folder. Okay, here it is in my desktop. I actually have to move this into that walkthrough folder. So if I go to my walkthrough folder, it has to be where all of my other files are. Okay. Now I need to make sure that I'm spelling this exactly right. So the same as how we are writing for these files to link to them, my source has to be coffee with a capital B, coffeebag.jpg. That's the type of file it is. Okay, so let's go here, and instead of this, I'm doing coffeebag.jpg. I have to make sure that this is inside of quotes. Okay, now let's go ahead and save, Control S. We open up our browser, so let's open up our file, and we are on index. I now have the image, okay? But this image is a locally local. It's in that folder. There is no networking issues. When I go to load my page, all the pictures that I'm doing on my stuff, I'm not having to go to another website to pull the pictures. It actually makes it run faster. So I want to make sure that I'm renaming as I'm pulling them. Okay. So I'm going to go back and forth doing that, pulling my stuff. So let's go back to my page. So we got this one. Now let's do here. Life is more than the sum of parts as involves, and then we have this image. Let's go ahead and we'll copy this. And I got kind of a rhythm going. So I'm going to do another section with the same thing. Section, tab, paste. Now I need to find the location of this. So we're going to go to the browser. So click up here, paste, enter. There it is. Right click. Or, click on the image, click on Save Image As. Choose where you're going to save it. It should be in that walkthrough folder. Give it a new name. So maybe pouring water, coffee. Okay, and then that's a JPG, JPEG. Pouring water, coffee. So I go ahead and save that. Now in Atom, I can change the name. Okay, and if I forgot the name because I had that project folder open, it's right there. Pouring water, coffee. So pouring water, coffee.jpg. Go ahead and save. Come back here. Let's go to our brand. We refresh. We want to make sure that that's added in there. Okay. So it's not really changing my content look, but I am organizing this with sections. This will be useful when we actually want to start doing layouts. Okay, let's go ahead and do another one. Section, I'm going to keep bouncing around. I'm going to go a little bit faster now since we understand this process. Copy. And once I get this done, so ideally it should be really fast with your content once you have it, to be able to get this stuff, because you already spent that time collecting it. Villa.jpg. And if I don't remember the name, I can always look here. I'll need to make sure that this is spelled exactly right. Okay, let's go back. It's a new one. Now, if I was, had some content that I felt was if I had some content that I felt was completely independent, let's do winter hood, of my page, that it could be pulled apart and it would make 100% sense, then I would look at using article instead. Scruffy man. Article is good for when you're saying that your content is independent of your page, that if they pulled out, someone was linking to it, it could be sitting by itself. That's a good way of how we would break up using our content, whether we're using section or whether we're using article. Scruffy man. Okay, so now let's go ahead and save, reload. I should have all that stuff there. Okay, so I got all this stuff. Now, even the stuff that we are copying, when we are looking at here in the file, anything actually after this question mark is stuff that we are passing to Unsplash to resize this, so it gives it like max size and everything. So I can play around with this URL, and anything from the question mark on can pretty much be removed. And I should still get the original image. Now this would be the large image. So I could copy this, and if I put this in my code, so Scruffy man, let's save that as Scruffy man. Now, if I refreshed, I'm going to end up having, let's make sure that I got it, scruffyman.jpg. If I refresh this and load, I have a much larger image. Now, why would I do this? Well, if you are trying to have this image take up much larger space, it would actually be better for you to use the original image instead of scaling down and then trying to scale back up. So we do need to be mindful of that. So this would actually be a better image, and I could go through and I could resave that stuff. Because I have this, I can actually find all of those original images. Okay, and then I will end up designing in my CSS to actually get the proper sizing. But this image is large, okay, very large. And we can use that to resize. So this, could be really used for a lot of things. Okay, so besides for that, so now our next thing that we end up having is we have these locations. I think that's really good supporting material. This should be for my aside. Okay, so locations, and then we got to kind of look at our content. So what do I have in my locations? I have a name, and then I have, there's place 1 with some images for that place, place 2 with some images for that place, and I also have a map. Okay, so I think these actually work better as a list item. So when I pull this stuff in, I'm going to actually organize with that. So I'm going to go ahead and copy all of that stuff. Let's move this into Atom. So I am done with my main. So that means that I can go up here on my main with the little drop down, and I can close that, minimize it, so I don't have to worry about that anymore. Now, if I did not properly close 34, that's not closing all of them. I can, individually minimize each of my pieces if I wanted to do that. So I don't have to pay attention to that code. That is useful. Sometimes it doesn't want to work all the way though. Okay, but we're working in a side right now. Okay, so here is where I'm going to be putting that content. Okay, now I need to think in terms of numbers for my headings, because I'm already at, for my main, I'm at that goal. I've already used H1 for the page, H2. So now I'm going to do H2 would make sense for the aside, because that is a sub, the aside is a sub grouping of the main. Okay, but because I said that this would be better as a list, so I'm going to do an unordered list, and each one is a line item. A line item can hold multiple things, and I had 2 of them. So let's do line item. I'm giving a bunch of space. Okay, so what do I want? I want this topic. I want those images and that map. That is going to be one of my things. So I'm going to Control X to move that, and I'll put that in here. Okay, and then let's do that for the next one. Location 2, there's my heading. H3 would make sense in this case. Control X. Let's put that inside of my line item so that it's a list. I can go ahead and save. Now, if I clicked on the process, we already know that our links work. I can click on process right here. Let's make sure that it's opening correctly. Oh, we're not on process. My mistake. So it should show up in our brand. It's going to be all the way at the bottom. Okay, so here's our stuff. Seattle Coffee House, location 1, location 2, and I have those addresses. Now I do need to replace all those images. We already walked through the process on how to do that. The iframes, that is another thing. So this is like when I am accessing part of another website, I am going to need to leave that. But I do have a little bit of styling here where I can choose to kind of change the sizes for the width and height for this. So if I wanted to like embed a Google map of a location, let's go ahead and kind of walk through that because, I did it. So let's embed Google Map. Okay, embed Google Maps for a website. So we could do this. We could look up a map, put an address, do what we want, and pull the HTML code. So, whatever place we wanted to do. Pier 39, San Francisco, California. Okay, so we find it. There's Pier 39. Do I want the satellite of it? I can, select. Do I want to zoom in or zoom out? Okay, so we can play around with this. And then, how big do we want our actual image? Do we want it really small? Do we want it really big? Do you want a smaller height? So you can play around with this because you're embedding that code. Okay, so that's something that won't scale as well as what you want, but then we can get our HTML code for that. And here it is. So I can, copy down this stuff. So this is one way to do it. There's a number of ways that we can do it to be able to copy this down. Okay, so use that to your advantage for being able to get a Google Map. You can also do google.com. And I've done it this way also, so we can just go to our maps. We can put up a location, and then we can embed this way. So, I don't know. Licking Heights High School. So we get it here. I've seen it also this way. Share, we can embed a map. So right there. And then this is the code that we would want to copy. And we can choose sizes here too. So there's a number of ways that you can play around with it. It all kind of depends on what you want to do. All right, so back on topic. We would want to replace all those images. We already know how to do that. And then that would be good for our side. Let's look at our footer. So when we come to our footer, let's look at our content for that. Footer is just this information right here. So we have what? We have, our kind of a title for our footer. We have a section. Inside the section, we have contact info, and then we have a paragraph. So we could use the details with the summary elements here. We could use a list if we have a number of links. So that is actually probably a good idea to do that. So even though I got this here, I'm gonna make some changes to this. Okay, so inside of here, we can stay with H2 because our numbers are still correct. Section, I am breaking down the footer into a smaller piece, so this is good. Contact info, but here would probably actually be better. If I was going to give a list of items, let's say Twitter, Facebook, whatever, Snapchat, an unordered list would make sense. So let's do Twitter, line item, Snapchat, line item, Facebook. So ultimately, I could add some font awesome icons here. Let's see, email, and maybe we want to do an address. Okay, so inside of all of these, after I add that, I can use the address tag. So this would probably be better to use the address tag like this and put Twitter inside of there and do that for each one of those. In terms of organization, this would make more sense. Inside my line items, it doesn't just have to be one line of code. It could be multiple things. It might make like here, maybe I'm going to have an icon instead of saying Twitter, and then I actually have my Twitter handle there. And that could also be a link that we could do. So here I might do, there's my address, but I want that to be a clickable item. So maybe I might do something like this. And say, I know that I'm providing to the system that here's the the Twitter handle, but it's all going to be a clickable thing, and it's going to go to that Twitter page. So Twitter page, something to that effect. Okay, so this is how I would organize my list of contact info things. Also, I could do my address, but we already did that. We could still reproduce it here. Address 1, and we had address 2. And in this case, actually, it might be better to do another list inside of here. So I could have another unordered list with line item 1 for address 1 and for address 2. Okay. So a line item that has its own list inside of here, so I can have this. So if I need to put a title, if I'm breaking down the section again, so this is an H3, this section is an H3. If I'm using another title for this unordered list, this should be an H4, and I'll put addresses. Okay, so then what do I need to see? Let's go ahead and save this. refresh a page. So here's my footer. I have contact info, I have address, I have this. That looks pretty good. We can leave that to fix our content, I guess, a little bit later. Contact information needs to go here. That can get removed. And our copyright information, we can play around with that. But this would be basically our content, making sure that we are changing and using local files for all of our pictures, everything. Okay? All right. So doing the process, it's going to be the same thing. So when we go to our page 2, so now we're on our page 2, what do we have? Process basically is breaking up into a selection where we're selecting the coffee beans, we're providing information, we're roasting the coffee beans, providing information, some pictures. Let's see. Yep. So we're just breaking them down into two pieces, so selection and roasting. Okay, and then we end up having our footer. So in this case, we don't really have an aside, and that's okay that we don't have an aside. Now, could we maybe put pictures over there as supporting stuff? Yes, I just don't think that's necessary. Aside is when you're really providing specific content. So in this case, there is no aside. So when we go here to our process, so that's what we're working on now. So I'm going to bring this over. We are in our, we're not working on our header, we're in our body. So we are in main. And we know in our main that there is 2 sections that we had. So let's break up our main. So our main is an H2, and this was, our process. I do think that I want to have this mentioned, our process here. Even though we're Pirate Coffee as our title, and for our H1, the main, this makes sense. Our process, and then that is breaking up into 2 different parts. So we have a section, and then we have another section. And inside of here, this would be H3 and H3, and then we can start moving our stuff. So let's go back. So this selection, that is our title for our first one, and we have paragraphs and images, all setting up to roasting. Let's copy those. And then we can move over here. So this would be here. This is selection and our paragraphs with images. Again, we're going to have to go to view, toggle soft wrap because we're on a new page. And then what would I have to do again for here? I need to actually locate those files, pull them. Ideally, it would be better to do the full file, so I'm copying this and pasting in a browser, downloading the image. Okay. So that would have to be done. That would be for that first section. For our roasting, let's go to our roasting. Roasting, we have paragraphs and images. So none of that is really any different. We're not looking at doing any type of styling. So this is roasting. There it is. I got to change those images. And finally, then what do we have? We have our footer. Okay, so this is going to start being a reoccurring element. So I'm actually going to go into here to my index then, and I'm just going to pull my previous footer stuff. So this entire thing, I'm going to pull this up to the open and closing tag of my footer. That's what I want, that I know I'm going to end up working on later for each one of my pages when I start adding icons. So that is going to be not inside the main, it's going to be outside of the main. Okay, so then we need to make sure that our number's right. The blank, that would be right, because main was H2. Footer is on the same level as main, so that would also be H2. So this is all good. So that is my 2 pages, index and process. So our brand and our process. When we look here to make sure that everything is working, let's go back to the top of the page. We saved. So if we click on process, there we go. Here's our stuff. It doesn't look like it's laying out any differently of what we want because we have not done any layout. We have not done any color design, which is how it's supposed to be. You are just getting your content. Okay. So this is an example of how to do semantic HTML pulling from the Brainstorm of 2 pages to organize in main, aside, and footer, and to further organize correctly whenever we have to do like breaking up a group into a smaller group, into subgroups of how we need to change our numbering for our headings. Okay, so I took the content that we had, doing simple HTML with some semantic elements, and then pulled it into Atom to do proper numbering and everything of that. Okay, you're following along with this as the assignment that you're going to want to turn in after you guys get all of those pieces done. Make sure that all of your images are properly saved with a useful file name with no spaces. Then you are turning in these HTML files into the Schoology assignment. All right, good luck. Have fun.